Hi Year 9 again, it's me. So what we're doing for today's lesson is we're still looking at everything I never told you, the extract we looked at last lesson, but we're focusing on question 4 today. So what I'd like you to do is reread the extract for your do now. So pause the video now and reread the extract. So for task 1, it's a bit of a split task. I was looking for you on OneNote. I noticed some of you had completed the lesson last lesson and some of you didn't, which is okay. So what I want you to do for this lesson is split into 2 groups per se. If you you've not finished some of the questions from last lesson, I'd go back and rewrite them. Just in task 1, if you're going back and finishing off, so you could say finishing last lesson and then highlighting that yellow or pink or whatever colour you like. I quite like pink. So if that's what you're doing for task 1, finishing off some work from last lesson, just write it like that. And if you finish everything last lesson, what you're going to do is do some self-assessment. So if you finish last lesson, reread question 3 and the mark scheme. So what I've popped here is a mark scheme for question 3. I chose question 3 because I think students struggle the most with structural analysis, because we spend a lot of time analysing language, so you're a bit more familiar with analysing language in Ps, and also sometimes we do analyse structure without even realising it. So foreshadowing is structure, cyclical narratives is structure, juxtaposition is structure, and many other features that we've covered in this scheme of work. But I think students struggle with it most, and admittedly I find I struggle with this one most, so we're going to be doing a bit of self-analysis, self-assessment even, on question 3. So I've popped the mark scheme here. It has the grade boundaries, so for GCSE particular grades aren't selected for grade boundaries because they shift depending on how well that year's done. It's a percentage based grade, so you have boundaries, you have levels instead. So a level 4 is where you're going to end up for 7 to 8 marks, level 3, level 2 and level 1. So you're all going to be aiming between level 3 and level 4, and that will be your grades 8, 9, 7, 5, 6 kind of range roughly in here, depending where that grade boundary falls that year. And what I do is mark yourself within this one of these levels. You might be partly in 4, you might be partly in 3, 2, 1, you might have a variety. Then I want you to write 2 what went wells and an EBI, so 2 things you did well and 1 thing, 1 even better if, something you want to improve on. If you've done that and you haven't filled up your 20 minutes, what I'd like you to do is rewrite your section 3, including your EBI. Does that make sense? So you will be in one of those 2 groups, and if you've got a little bit to finish off, then you can move on to this. Right. So what you're going to want to do is pause the video now and have a go at that. So for question 4, task 2, what I want you to do is read the question, well I'll read it to you, and then reread lines 30 till the end of the extract. So again, like with question 2, this will give you a section of the extract to focus on. So focus this part of your answer on the second part of the source from lines 30 to the end. They'll give you a statement again, which is here, and you need to say how much you agree with it, to what extent. A student having read this section of the text said, "This part of the story shows that Lydia's family are extremely worried about her. I think they are a close family." So remember, it was last time we tried a question 4, I said often they are split into 2 points, the statement, and you're graded on AO4, which is your critical evaluation, so it's good actually if you can pull the question apart and think about 2 parts. So a little pink, and let's go with blue. Why not? Pink and blue. So this is how I see the question breaking down. This part of the story shows that Lydia's family are extremely worried. That's the first point. I think the family are very close, and this statement's actually done you a bit of a favour that they've put it in 2 different sentences for you. They don't always do that. So that's how I say it's a 2-part question. So that's a statement, and you need to answer to what extent you agree. So, as mentioned before, you can either completely agree, completely disagree, or agree to an extent or disagree to an extent. I think it's always wise to agree to an extent or agree to disagree to an extent. Have one piece focusing on maybe disagreeing or giving a slightly alternative viewpoint, because then you're critically engaging a little bit with that question. So reread the extract, and I'd go through and highlight where those points hit. Again, the rest of this lesson, so task 3, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and 6 all lead on to each other, so you might spend slightly longer in different sections of it. That's okay, but do leave yourself at least 35 minutes writing time for this section, so if you can be a little bit flexible with the timings of these parts here. So pause the video and reread lines 30 till the end. I'd go through with a highlighter if I were you. Right, so moving on to task 3, I want you to find as many points for agree and disagree. As I said, this is a two-part opinion. So Lydia's family are extremely worried about her. I'd say it's the first part of that question, and the second part of that question is I think they're a close family. So bullet point everything evidence you found to agree here, and such like and so forth for each box. Just bullet point the evidence. You don't need to find quotes just yet. So pause the video and have a crack at that question. Right, so if you're struggling and you're just thinking, oh no, I don't know, I've written some examples here for you. So if you're struggling, I pause the video now and add to yours. Instead of me reading them all out to you. So pause the video now and add to yours if you're struggling or find these particularly interesting. Right, I'm presuming you've all paused or have plenty of points in your section there for you. So we're going to move on to task 4 now. The last time we did task 4, we did a similar exercise. So here you will have agree and disagree, and it's just bullet pointed everything you can find. Now what I want you to do is think about how you're going to answer the question. Just answer it in one sentence. So I totally agree, I agree to an extent, I agree mainly with this part and maybe not so much with that part, I disagree to an extent, or I totally disagree. So leave those sort of sentence starters and write it here. You're writing just in one sentence how you're going to answer, so you have a continuous theme running through your answer. You can look back and say every point I make needs to come back to my core argument. So write that down there. When you've done that, you're going to want to move on to this part. So again, this is like a deconstructed point in evidence. So let's say P is 1 here. It's not like that, is it? You get what I'm doing. So you want to put your point for P is 1 here. Just write a sentence and then put your evidence here. So this is almost like the pre-planning stage of your question 4 planning. It's just helping you clarify in your mind what your point is and what your quote is. So everything you write about in that particular piece will need to come back to your point, and your point needs to come back to your answer. So it's almost like your answer's here, and each piece you write going down links back and re-answers that question. So thinking about that in that sort of clear way will help structure your answer. So you've got 10 minutes to do that, so pause the video and have a go at that. Right, so for task 5, this is your planning. So this little grid is like a visual construction of the format of how you want to answer. So just highlight this section here. You want introduction, piece 1, piece 2, piece 3, piece 4. If you have more, you can put piece 5 there if you want. Just add it if you want. If you're only doing 3, delete it as well. I'd recommend trying to get 4 in. Introduction. Again, I've given a little outline here of instructions of what to do with your introduction, because I know sometimes you struggle with that, and the same with your conclusion, so you can delete what's in this box and write a couple of points for you there. Bullet point what you want to say. if you've done this, then you can copy and paste your point and your evidence in. Just a quick plan for 10 minutes. So pause the video again and quickly crack on with your plan. Right, and task 6 is quite straightforward. Follow your plan and answer the question in full. Here, you've got about 35 minutes for that. Again, if you're struggling, go to handouts. There'll be a P's breakdown, a P's sentence stem, and starters for you. I hope that helps you. If you've got any questions, please do email me.